The sound came at exactly 2:17 a.m. Not a scream. Not a knock. It was the slow dragging of something heavy across the ceiling above us. I remember holding my breath, staring at the frost crawling along the window glass, listening as the noise stopped, then started again. Drag. Pause. Drag. The Airbnb listing had promised peaceful winter solitude. It didn't mention footsteps where no floor existed. My phone buzzed in my hand. No signal. No Wi-Fi. Just the clock glowing faintly. 2:18 a.m. Another sound followed. Softer this time. A whisper. Not words. Just breath. I turned toward the bedroom door, expecting to see my wife standing there, half asleep, confused like me. The door was still closed. The whisper came again, closer now, pressed against the wood. Don't open it. My wife stirred beside me. Her eyes opened slowly. Did you hear that? She whispered. The dragging sound stopped abruptly. Silence rushed in, thick, heavy, wrong. Then came a single, deliberate knock on the ceiling above us. 1, 2, 3. And something inside me understood, with sick certainty, that whatever was upstairs knew we were awake. The cabin didn't feel wrong at first. That's the part that still bothers me. It felt neutral, like a place waiting to decide what it would become once we stepped inside. Snow covered everything so evenly it erased sharp edges, softened angles, made the world feel paused. Our headlights cut through the dark forest, briefly illuminating tree trunks before they slipped back into shadow, identical and endless. Sarah leaned her head against the window. I can't believe how far out this is. That's the point, I said, forcing cheer into my voice. No noise. No people. No witnesses, a quieter part of my mind added. The GPS died 10 minutes before we arrived. The screen froze, then went black, like it had reached the end of something. I followed instinct and the faint tracks of tires half buried in snow until the cabin appeared between the trees. It sat alone in a wide clearing, lights off, porch buried under snow. The structure looked older than the photos suggested. The wood darker, swollen, as if it had absorbed too many winters and never fully dried. The roof sagged slightly in the middle. Sarah whispered, "It looks tired." I laughed softly. It's just a cabin. But when I cut the engine, the silence hit us hard. Not peaceful silence. Empty silence. No wind. No distant cars. Not even the soft movement of branches. It felt like the forest was holding its breath. The front door unlocked easily. Too easily. No resistance. No frozen latch. As if it had been opened recently. Inside, the cold wrapped around us immediately. The air smelled old, not rotten, not dirty, just unused. Like a room sealed for years and reopened without warning. The heater clicked on with a groan that sounded almost like a sigh. The living room was neat to the point of discomfort. Couch perfectly centered. Fireplace cleaned spotless. A folded blanket placed with careful symmetry. No dust. No clutter. No personality. No proof anyone ever stayed long enough to leave something behind. Minimalist, Sarah said, trying to lighten the mood. I nodded, but my eyes kept drifting upward. The stairs were narrow, steeper than they should have been, tucked into the corner like an afterthought. They disappeared into darkness above, the overhead bulb refusing to reach the top. "What's up there?" Sarah asked. "Listing said storage," I replied. She tilted her head. Storage for what? I didn't have an answer. We unpacked quickly, hands numb from the cold. Outside, snow began to fall again. Thick, steady flakes that erased our tire tracks within minutes. By the time I looked out the window, the road we'd taken was already gone. Dinner was quiet. The kind of quiet where conversation feels unnecessary but also dangerous to start, like we might say the wrong thing and shatter something fragile. The cabin made small noises as it warmed. Wood popping, metal ticking. Normal sounds. Expected sounds. Then came the first wrong one. A dull thud from above. Not loud. Not sharp. Just heavy enough to notice. I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. "Did you hear that?" Sarah nodded slowly. "Yeah." We waited. Nothing followed. Probably the roof, I said. Snow shifting. She didn't respond. Later, while she washed dishes, I stood beneath the stairwell and listened. The air felt colder there. Sharper. Like stepping into shade even though the room was evenly lit. I placed my hand on the railing. The wood was colder than everything else. I took one step up. The stair creaked, loud, high-pitched, and the sound echoed upward longer than it should have, stretching into the dark. Then something echoed back. Not the same creak. A softer sound. Like movement adjusting to mine. I stepped back down immediately. That night, the storm thickened. Snow pressed against the windows, blurring the forest into a white wall. The fireplace crackled low. The heater hummed steadily. We lay in bed, the unfamiliar mattress stiff beneath us. Sarah whispered, "Do you feel watched?" "No," I said too quickly. She turned toward me. "You didn't even think about it." I stared at the ceiling, where shadows from the firelight moved slowly, rhythmically, like something breathing. "It's just the quiet. We're not used to it." She didn't argue, but she didn't relax either. Sleep came in fragments. Dreams without images. Just sensations. Pressure. Weight. Being observed without eyes. At 2:17 a.m., I woke abruptly. The room was colder. The fire had died. The sound came from above us. A slow dragging noise. Not random. Controlled. Something heavy being pulled across wood. I held my breath, listening as it stopped. Then started again. Drag. Pause. Drag. Sarah shifted beside me. "You hear that?" she whispered. Before I could answer, another sound followed. A whisper. So faint I almost convinced myself it was the wind forcing its way through the walls. But there was no wind. The whisper came again, closer this time. Pressed against the bedroom door. "Don't open it." My heart slammed hard enough to hurt. The dragging stopped. Silence rushed in, thick and complete. Then came a single knock from above us. Measured. Intentional. And in that moment, as the cabin settled around us like a closing jaw, I understood something with absolute clarity. We weren't guests. We were expected. And whatever lived in this place had finally realized we were awake. Morning arrived without warmth. The light outside was flat and gray, as if the sun had climbed halfway into the sky and stopped. Snow pressed against the windows in thick layers, blurring the forest into vague shapes that looked closer than they should have been. The cabin felt smaller in daylight, its corners sharper, its silence heavier. Neither of us mentioned the whisper. We moved carefully, speaking only when necessary, like sound itself might draw attention. Sarah brewed coffee. I stood by the window, watching the snow fall straight down, no wind to push it. "The road's gone," I said. She joined me, staring out. Where the path had been the night before, there was only untouched white. No tracks. No sign we'd ever arrived. "That's not possible," she said quietly. I didn't argue. Something about the cabin resisted logic. Arguing felt pointless, like shouting underwater. The heater cut out mid-morning. The sudden silence was jarring. I flipped the switch. Nothing. Sarah hugged herself. "It's freezing already." I grabbed my jacket. "I'll check the breaker." The breaker box was in the stairwell. Standing at the base of the stairs, I felt it again, that subtle pressure like the air had thickened. The light above flickered weakly, casting long shadows that twisted unnaturally along the walls. Each step groaned under my weight, the sound traveling upward, stretching, lingering. Halfway up I stopped. The smell hit me then. Old wood. Dust. Something metallic beneath it. At the top, the small door sat slightly ajar. It hadn't been opened before. A hand-painted sign hung crookedly from a nail. "Storage. Do not enter." The words looked rushed, uneven, as if written in a hurry. Or fear. I pushed the door open. The room beyond wasn't storage. It was too empty. Bare wooden walls. A single exposed bulb hanging from a wire. The floor scratched deeply in long arcs, like something had been dragged back and forth repeatedly. Rusted chains hung from ceiling beams, swaying slightly, though there was no breeze. My stomach turned. Then I saw the carvings. Names etched deep into the wood. Hundreds of them. Some scratched out violently. Others left untouched, the letters darkened with age. I backed out slowly, closing the door with shaking hands. Downstairs, Sarah looked up immediately. "What's wrong?" "There's nothing wrong," I said automatically. The lie tasted sour. That afternoon, someone knocked on the front door. 3 slow raps. I opened it to find an old man standing in the snow. His coat was thin, his face lined deeply, eyes sharp and tired. "You staying there?" he asked. "Yes," I said. His gaze drifted past me, toward the stairwell. "You shouldn't." "Why?" He hesitated, then leaned closer. "It keeps people in winter. Easier that way." Before I could respond, he turned and walked back into the trees, swallowed by falling snow. That night, the voices returned. Not just whispers now. Fragments. Words slipping in and out of sense. Sarah sat curled on the couch, hands pressed to her temples. "They keep saying my name." I listened. At first I heard nothing. Then, faintly beneath the hum of the heater, something murmured. My name. Over and over. At 2:17 a.m., footsteps moved above us. Clear. Deliberate. The stairs creaked, not from weight descending, but from something shifting its balance. Sarah grabbed my arm. "It's coming down." The whisper returned, closer than ever, sliding through the walls instead of around them. "This house remembers." I rushed upstairs at dawn. The storage door was wide open. Inside, the chains swayed violently, clanking softly, as if recently disturbed. Fresh scratches marred the floor. A new name had been carved into the wall. "Sarah." I screamed. The cabin answered with a low groan, like satisfaction. We searched desperately for a way out. Windows wouldn't open. Doors led back inside. Time bent. Minutes vanished, hours repeated. The forest outside shifted subtly, paths rearranging themselves. That's when I found the journal, hidden beneath a loose floorboard near the fireplace. The pages were yellowed, the handwriting shaky. It belonged to a caretaker, someone who'd tried to watch the house. He wrote about winter travelers, about disappearances blamed on storms, animals, accidents, about the cabin's hunger, how it fed on isolation, fear, and silence. At 2:17 a.m. it chose. One stayed. One left. The house didn't kill. It kept. As I finished reading, the stairs began to stretch upward unnaturally, lengthening, pulling toward the darkness above. Sarah stood frozen at their base. "It wants me," she whispered. The whisper agreed, and the house leaned in, ready to collect. The house changed that night. It wasn't subtle. Not anymore. The walls breathed. Literally. The wood expanded and contracted in uneven rhythms. Floorboards warped beneath our feet. The air itself seemed viscous, thickening with every movement, every whispered breath. Outside, the storm had vanished, replaced by unnatural quiet. No wind, no snow, nothing. Just the endless dark forest pressing against the cabin as if it were alive. Sarah didn't speak. She just stared at the stairwell. The storage door upstairs now pulsed slightly, like a wound breathing. I felt drawn toward it, even as every rational thought screamed to stay away. Then I heard her scream. Sharp, terrified, broken. It wasn't just a scream, it was a signal. Something had changed. Something had claimed her attention, her body, her soul. I ran to her side, grabbing her hands. "Sarah, we have to go." She shook her head violently. "No, it wants me." Her eyes were wide, but not entirely her own. There was something else there, something cold, patient, ancient. The whisper had become a voice, low and deliberate, resonating inside my skull rather than my ears. One stays. One leaves. The house was laughing. Not with sound, but with motion. The staircase stretched unnaturally, bending upward into blackness. The ceiling warped. Familiar shapes twisted into alien angles. The door to the living room snapped shut behind me, trapping me with the smell of old wood and rot. I tried to pull Sarah toward the exit. Chains clattered overhead, swinging violently. Dust and splinters fell like rain. Her weight was suddenly impossible to hold, light, but resisting as if some invisible tether had attached her to the stairs. "I can't," I shouted. "Then go," she screamed back, voice cracking, almost pleading. Time fractured. Seconds stretched into minutes. Minutes snapped into milliseconds. My watch spun its hands wildly. The fire flickered unnaturally, casting shadows that moved on their own, forming shapes of people we hadn't seen before, faces frozen in terror, reaching from the walls. I realized then, this wasn't just a house. It was a collector, a library of trapped souls. And it had decided Sarah was next. She tried to climb the stairs. They lengthened with every step. Chains lashed at her legs. The walls closed slightly, tightening the space like a fist. I ran after her, grabbing desperately at her coat, but my fingers passed through it, as if she were no longer fully there. Her last words were whispered into the warped air. "I think it needs me more than you." Then she was gone, pulled upward into the darkness, leaving nothing but a faint cold draft and the echo of her scream. I collapsed onto the floor, shaking, sobbing, pounding my fists on the warped wood. My own name whispered again, faint and mocking. The ceiling above me groaned, the walls flexed. The house was alive, and it knew I was alone. I tried the doors. Locked. Windows. Frozen, unyielding, reflections warped. I ran from room to room. Each corner I turned, the interior had subtly shifted. A hallway that had led to the kitchen now ended in black. A door that hadn't been there before loomed ahead. Then I saw them. Figures. Shaped like people but wrong. Faces elongated. Bodies twisted. Their eyes hollow. They didn't move like humans. They moved like reflections, sliding across walls and ceilings. They whispered. Names. My name. Sarah's. Others I didn't know, yet recognized in instinctive terror. Their hands reached out, grasping for me, but I couldn't touch them. Couldn't escape them. I ran upstairs toward the storage room. The stairs weren't stairs anymore. They were a black void, stretching infinitely into darkness. My legs burned. My lungs ached. I reached for the door, but it was now sealed by the same weightless force that had taken Sarah. The whisper returned, but now it was her voice. "It remembers. It remembers. It remembers." The walls pulsed. The floor rippled beneath me like water. My mind strained to hold onto reality, but it fractured piece by piece. Memories, fears, instincts all mingled into a single sharp dread. The cabin wasn't just a structure. It was a predator, a mind, a collector, and I was prey. I tried to scream. No sound came. Tried to run. The hallway stretched. Turned a corner, and the living room appeared. But it wasn't the living room. Furniture warped grotesquely. Shadows formed faces of people who had disappeared. I heard whispers in dozens of voices, overlapping, impossible to distinguish. Some warning, some mocking, some pleading. I grabbed the fire poker, swung at the shadows. They passed through it. The floor vibrated beneath me, as if mocking my attempts. And then I saw her again. Sarah, or part of her, half corporeal, half shadow, suspended in the black void above. She reached down. Her lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear. The chains rattled, and the room seemed to pulse in response, the entire house groaning like a living, breathing being. I realized the truth. The cabin doesn't just trap people. It transforms them, shapes them into part of itself. It's never satisfied. Each winter it collects more. It keeps one. It allows one to leave. Broken, hollow, haunted. I ran. Somehow, I made it through a door that led back outside. The snow was gone. The forest stretched infinitely, dark and silent. No cabin. No signs of Sarah. Only footprints leading to nowhere. I collapsed in the snow, shivering, bleeding, muttering her name. My lungs burned. My heart raced. The world seemed impossibly still. But in the absolute quiet, I heard it again. It remembers. I understood with a chilling clarity. What had taken Sarah was not gone. And the cabin was patient. Eternal. I would never be safe. Not fully. I had survived for now. But survival in this place isn't freedom. It's being chosen next. And the whisper ended the night with a final chilling promise, echoing in my skull, impossible to ignore. One stays. One leaves. It's your turn to choose. I woke in the snow. Cold. Wet. Alone. The road stretched out in front of me, straight and clear as if the storm had never existed. My car was there, engine still warm, but the cabin was gone. The clearing was empty. Pines swayed gently in a light breeze, sunlight spilling between them. Nothing to indicate the horror I had endured. I didn't move at first. My hand shook. My lungs burned. My mind spun trying to make sense. Was it a dream? A hallucination? I kept expecting Sarah to appear beside me, smiling, brushing snow from her hair. But she didn't. I tried to call her. No signal. Nothing. I screamed her name. My voice bounced between the trees, swallowed by the forest. Silence answered. When I reached town hours later, I found no clues. Authorities were polite but dismissive. Accidents happen in winter. Snow, ice, exposure. They noted my distress but wrote nothing down that could explain the missing woman, the burned-out cabin, or the terror I had felt. It should have ended there. It didn't. I've returned home. City noise, traffic, lights, people. They should have comforted me. Instead, every quiet night is a trap. Every creak of wood, every gust of wind at the window, every whisper I catch in passing conversation reminds me that it's still out there. Patient. Waiting. At home, I can't sleep past 2:17 a.m. Not really. That's when it begins. A dragging sound. Faint at first. Then deliberate. A whisper against the walls. My name. My wife's. Others I do not know but feel the presence of. The house follows me even when I am nowhere near it. It doesn't need walls to trap me. The fear it planted travels with me. I avoid winter trips. I avoid isolation. I avoid any Airbnb listing that promises solitude or quiet. I know now that those words are bait. And still, sometimes I can't stop myself from looking. Last week, I saw a new listing. Online. Bright photos. Snow-covered forest. A quaint, wooden cabin. Perfect winter escape, it promised. Secluded. 5 stars. The host's name. Sarah. I froze. I clicked the profile. Reviews. Dozens of them, glowing. But the first one caught my eye. Quiet. Warm. The house really listens. It wasn't a review. It was a warning. I don't know how she survived, or what she has become. I've avoided winter since then. But the whisper follows. Sometimes in my apartment, late at night, the soft scrape of something heavy being dragged across a floor I know is solid. Sometimes in the wind, voices slip through the cracks. One stays. One leaves. I know now that the cabin doesn't just collect people. It shapes them, changes them. It is alive in a way the world cannot understand. It doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive. It waits. And I am always aware that next winter, or the winter after, or some quiet night in a stranger's house, it will call again. I've learned to move quietly, to watch shadows, to track the whispers. I sleep lightly, clutching memories that might not be enough. Because survival is fragile, temporary. And somewhere in a forest swallowed by snow, my wife smiles at the door that leads nowhere, waiting for the next visitor to arrive. She is not Sarah anymore. Not entirely. She is the house. And the house remembers. Always. Even now, I hear the faintest scratch against my window. The softest drag across the ceiling above. It hasn't forgotten me. And it will never let me forget her. End lingering thought. Even when you escape, the quiet follows. It whispers your name. It waits in the shadows. It remembers. Winter travel is never just a trip. It is a choice. And some choices once made cannot be undone.